Welcome to this explainer video on how to use data about inbound phone calls and emails for monitoring and evaluation of the Report a Breach service. People often contact their local council by phone, email, or perhaps web form to complain about something they think the council can help them with, and a reduction in the effort needed to review and respond to these calls and emails is a key benefit that's been seen by councils who've already launched the Report a Breach service. Identifying and counting those inbound calls and emails related specifically to enforcement can be difficult. So if you're part of the ODP project for your local planning authority and you need to understand how to measure the impact of the Report a Breach service, then this guide is for you. Let's start with the big picture. To assess how well the Report a Breach service is working, the outcomes it delivers, where improvements can be made, we use a monitoring and evaluation framework. If you're not familiar with this diagram, then take a look at an earlier video in this series, Introduction to Monitoring and Evaluation for Report a Breach. One of the key benefits we've identified is fewer and shorter phone and email interactions. And we expect to measure the total number of inbound phone calls and the total number of inbound relevant emails. Data sources for phone calls are likely to be a call handling system, a CRM, or perhaps manual recording. And for emails, the council email service. This information feeds into the monitoring and evaluation framework report that summarizes progress and outcomes over time. More about that towards the end of this video. So what will you need to do to get yourself ready for data collection? Let's start with phone calls. The first thing you need to do is identify who takes the calls about enforcement. In some councils, there's a central customer contact team who are the first point of contact for all calls. In others, calls go directly to a duty enforcement officer role, which receives direct calls, or the contact team passes on to that team those calls they can't resolve themselves. This role is often a rotating role amongst a group of enforcement officers. Once you're clear who's involved, consider what system and process is being used to log data about the calls. Some councils use an integrated phone and CRM system managed by a separate specialist contact team who records some basic information about each call. Others may simply pass calls directly to the enforcement team, and it's these officers who record information on their back office system. Two typical problems that councils have experienced so far then. The first is making sure the data about all calls is collected. Some teams, for example, only note calls in the back office system that are confirmed as valid enforcement calls. So it's vital to get an agreement to change that approach so that all the calls get counted. The second and perhaps more common challenge is the level of detail recorded about the subject of each call. A lot of councils record planning-related calls, but they've no more detail than that. Options include permanently agreeing to add a second layer of reasons for those planning-related calls, adding a specific one to the list for enforcements perhaps, or getting agreement for data to be manually taken for agreed periods of time. So how to get those changes made? Some colleagues have had to follow a strict and slow process, making official requests that can take time. And in some cases, I've had to wait until the annual review of a contract even to get those changes in place. Making those changes can be laborious, but they're well worth it in the long run. Medway and Gateshead, for example, included an update to the level of detail recorded in their annual review, and they're starting now to reap the rewards of that work. If you're going to have to go through that process, then while you're at it, ask for an update that will help you track the impact of other services in the future. Request a broader set of reasons, and the M&E working group can help you with this. Meanwhile, consider how you might use manual recording in the short term for this particular project, about which more in a second. In other councils, teams can be more responsive if they are convinced of the benefits of making change because they have more direct access to the systems they use to record information. If you can, Help the manager of the team who take these calls understand not only the potential of the reported breach service to reduce wasted effort handling calls, but also the opportunity that the Planix platform provides to develop services that will reduce the number of calls across a wide range of reasons specific to your council. Again, the M&E working group, or in this case, the Planix product team, can tell you about the range of new services that are being developed and tested by LPAs across our community. If you can secure that relationship, then you may well have found a strong ally for your projects. The team at Newcastle worked very hard to involve their customer support team, and they now get much more detailed data and a team that is on the front foot when it comes to supporting the collecting of this information and the development of services. Some councils were able to simply ask those receiving calls to make a manual record on a spreadsheet for defined periods. Tewkesbury and Camden, for example, had an agreement from duty officers to note all calls. Though they did find, after 3 months of this manual approach, the data quality does start to fall. So you may want to consider, if you're doing that, having a month of baseline data collection before launch, and then 2 separate months of post-launch data collection. As is so often the case, the key to successfully getting the data you need are starting early, showing the new service, explaining the benefits already gained by other councils, and asking for help and advice when you hit a brick wall. Now let's talk about emails. Start again by identifying who manages the inbound emails about planning enforcement. Just like phone calls, this could be a central customer contact team. It could be a specific support or validation team, or a duty enforcement officer. As for the system and process, most councils so far use Microsoft Outlook and Exchange with a shared inbox or a central email address. Sometimes they may have a CRM or a case management system associated with that. You may use other systems, but the principles of this advice still apply. The key is how are emails managed and moved around as they are dealt with. Some councils move received emails between folders and then archive them to a single store. If that's your case, then you have a ready store that you can interrogate to get the data, though it's likely to be a manual accounting process at first. Others log emails as a case and manage them that way on the CRM or the back office system. In that case, your main concern will be whether all emails are recorded or only those that are deemed viable. In some councils, emails are just forwarded to the right person, dealt with, and deleted. In those situations, you will need to make some basic system or process changes to make sure recording starts. Here then are the main options that councils have used so far. If all inbound complaint emails are archived for a period of time for review, then counting could be done that way, either manually or using some form of text analysis, Excel, or perhaps even a quickly trained AI. If there's not one already in place, you could create a new shared mailbox for enforcement complaints. Make sure that all relevant emails are routed through that address. Then, using Outlook auto copy rules, you can set up a separate archive mailbox and send a copy of everything received in an enforcement complaints email to that separate archive file. Make sure those are kept for an agreed amount of time, they're not immediately deleted, and again, you can do counting there. If you want to go one step further, you can use Power Automate, for example, to automatically gather metadata from those emails into a CSV file. So you could get the counting done automatically and receive a monthly or a weekly report of the count of emails associated with enforcement that you've received. You may well need your Outlook admin or IT team to help set this up and possibly need to carry out a data protection impact assessment. If either of those are needed and you need help, just reach out to the M&E working group again. Just as it was for phone call data, some councils have had to follow a strict and slow process to secure agreement. So they've resorted, meanwhile, to agreeing a manual archiving process. Others have found their contact teams have more capability to make their own changes and can be more responsive as long as they're convinced of the benefits of making the change. A quick tip from other LPAs. When you're discussing these data collection options with your team, don't forget to explain the benefits. Show what other councils have achieved, demonstrate how the new service works, maybe even set up a test account on PlanX to bring it to life. When people understand the why, they're far more likely to help with the how. So now you know what data to collect and how you're going to set that up. The question is, how much data for how long? Well, this is a before and after measure, or a pre-post launch measure, if you like. So you will want to collect a baseline of contact data before launch, at least 1 month. Then immediately after launch for 1 month, the first month after going live. And then again, after tweaks are made or the service is more widely promoted, another month of data. That lets us track how the use of the service grows over time. Once you've collected that data, it's time to report it. You'll receive access to a shared spreadsheet managed by a member of the M&E working group. It's based on the M&E framework and consists of a simple table where you will input your 3 sets of data. Make sure you submit your baseline data before the reported breach launch date, and that will give us a solid foundation for comparison. Hopefully this video has given you all the information you need to start preparing your phone call and email data for the reported breach M&E process. Let's recap a few pointers for you. Review your current phone call and email handling processes. Engage with your contacts and enforcement teams. Next, decide whether you're going to need IT or data analyst support and secure where that's going to come from. Decide what updates you will need for data recording and start the request approval process as soon as you can. Of course, if you've got any questions or you need help at any stage, reach out to me or any member of the Monitoring and Evaluation Working Group. We're all here to support you. Thank you for watching.